Unbelievable moment, my son urgently revealed at his wedding dinner that it wasn't for me. The room buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the delicious aroma of homemade food, but Robert sat frozen, a storm brewing beneath his calm demeanor. He watched as his son Jake, clad in a crisp, tailored suit, prepared to deliver the toast. 5 years of hard work and sacrifice had culminated in this moment, a wedding that echoed joy and celebration, yet the churning anxiety twisting in Robert's gut insisted on pushing through. Jake's face glowed with a blend of excitement and something deeper that Robert couldn't place, darkening an otherwise golden day. This was the pinnacle of Robert's single-handed dedication to rebuilding their lives and guiding his son after the loss of his wife. Little did he know, everything was about to shift. As the cheers faded, Jake cleared his throat and stood taller, his voice resonating through the hall. "Tonight, this isn't just about me and Emily," he began. A chilled silence fell over the room, the breath of anticipation palpable. "I want to honor my mom." Robert's heart dropped. The celebration he envisioned quickly morphed into something unrecognizable. What followed was a revelation that threatened to unravel the hard-won stability he had fought so long to create. With each simple word, Jake unraveled the hidden truth that made Robert's heart race and his breath catch. The prestigious scholarship and accolade that had felt like a victory for both of them wasn't awarded in Jake's name. Instead, it was a tribute to his late mother, a silent acknowledgement of sacrifices made that Robert had never fully understood. Waves of mixed emotions crashed into Robert like a gale-force wind, pride entwined with despair. The applause from friends and family seemed to drown out the internal conflict roaring in his mind, amplifying a gnawing anxiety that left him breathless. Before he could process the weight of the moment, Robert labeled himself as one left in the shadows, the once bright light of fatherhood dimmed by the specter of regret. What about all those late nights in the auto repair shop, his hands greasy and aching from toil? Wasn't he every bolt tightened in love? Emotions flickered through him like the flickering candles on the tables. He felt both esteemed and inconsequential, like a relic of a life sacrificed for a family that had already been claimed by loss. Had he prioritized the struggle over the recognition? Would the love he poured into Jake be overshadowed by a legacy he didn't even see coming? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The ancestral weight of his wife's legacy loomed larger than any pride he felt for Jake's achievements, twisting his heart into knots of confusion. As the applause settled into chaotic murmuring, Robert faced his internal tempest alone. He feared being relegated to a background figure, an indulgent father quickly forgotten. What did it mean for their relationship? Would Jake carry this burden forever, one deeply rooted in the memory of the mother who once steadied their world? Robert's gaze locked onto Jake, searching for solace in the boy's face, the boy who now stood on the edge of discovering not just a new life but a harrowing legacy. In that moment of raw vulnerability, father and son each wrestled with words unspoken, emotions too complex to share. Would they rise together or be severed by the weight of their shared past? The echoes of love, recognition, and sacrifice swirled in the air, casting a long shadow over the celebration, leaving Robert to grapple with the reality that unity and division walked a delicate line. The future of their bond hung precariously, waiting for the next move. The aftermath of Jake's speech wrapped Robert in a cocoon of confusion, a whirl of emotions that left him diaphanous in a sea of celebration. He felt almost invisible, battered by the realization that his role in Jake's life was shifting, perhaps irrevocably. As the laughter and chatter resumed, he remained stationary, grappling with the implications of Jake's tribute. Regret settled over him like a heavy blanket, stifling his thoughts and making each breath a deliberate effort. Robert's instincts kicked in, urging him to regain his composure. But how? He always defined himself through hard work, through visible struggles that, although unspectacular, added up to a life well lived. That night, his dedication had been overshadowed by a legacy not entirely his own. He glanced at the wedding cake, intricately decorated, full of promise and commitment, yet the taste of those triumphant moments now felt marred. Steeling himself, he decided he needed to confront the reality before him rather than retreat further into the shadows. What did Jake truly think of him? Could he still stand tall, proud of what it meant to be a father, or would he have to redefine that relationship based on this new narrative? With the flickering candles illuminating the once happy faces of friends and family, Robert felt an urgent need to breach the silence that had fallen between him and his son. After what felt like an eternity, he approached Jake, who was now surrounded by a new circle of friends. The joyous expressions that had captivated Robert earlier were now tinged with desperation. As he cleared his throat, Jake turned, confusion replacing the earlier enthusiasm in his eyes. They stood there for a moment, unspoken words heavy in the air, as if the wedding itself had become a backdrop for something far larger, a reckoning. "Jake," Robert started, but the lump in his throat threatened to silence him once more. "What you said about your mom, I know," Jake interrupted with an edge of frustration. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Dad. But there's something you need to see. This isn't solely about her, it's about me, and how we both fit into our lives now." Robert felt his heart hammer wildly in his chest. A flicker of hope ignited. Was Jake asking for more than just acknowledgement? "Are you feeling overwhelmed?" Robert asked, searching Jake's expression for any sign of clarity that might guide them through this complexity. "I get it. It's a new chapter for both of us." With an exhale, Jake turned to face his father fully. The intimacy of the moment seemed to strip away the festive noise around them, creating an invisible barrier that held their emotions at the forefront. "I want to understand us better, Dad." Jake's voice trembled slightly. "I'm proud of my mom and her legacy, but I want to celebrate you too. You've sacrificed so much. But being the dad who worked instead of being present, was that really what I needed?" A shocking wave of self-awareness crashed over Robert. Would Jake carry the weight of guilt, blaming himself for the time spent earning a living rather than bonding? A new realization emerged from the depths of Robert's mind. He needed to share his own burdens, confront his failures, and articulate the love he held on to yet hadn't expressed. "Let us talk," Robert said, resolve filling his chest. "We need to figure this out together, to embrace both histories and build a stronger future." But as he spoke, an unbidden fear gripped him tighter than ever. What if their conversation peeled back layers of hurt neither was ready to face? Yet the yearning to forge a new understanding felt overwhelmingly present, a call to merge two divergent legacies into one shared journey. The shift toward open dialogue wasn't just an invitation, it felt like a reclamation of familial connection. Robert's heart raced, anxious yet exhilarated, as anticipation bubbled within him. As they stepped away from the party, he felt the weight of uncertainty loom. He was ready to rediscover not only the father he had been but also the man he still could become. What would Jake ultimately reveal about himself in this awakening? It was a moment where the past met the future, and resilience would be their guide, but the clarity he sought eluded him as they moved forward. Would they overpower the legacy of grief that eternally tethered them, or would it continue to cast a shadow over their attempts to heal? The unsettling possibilities loomed, leaving Robert questions yet to be answered. Robert and Jake walked down a corridor away from the jubilant scene, the distant music fading into the background. The atmosphere shifted, it felt more intimate yet laced with tension, a fragile emotional landscape that could just as easily fracture as mend. He glanced sideways at Jake, who appeared lost in thought, a deeper frown replacing the carefree smile he had just flashed hours earlier. Robert felt the weight of the silence swell with unasked questions and unspoken fears. It was a silence that felt both heavy and liberating, as if they could finally explore what lay below the surface. "Do you want to go somewhere private?" Robert asked, attempting to break the icy silence. The indirectness of the question felt insufficient as he sensed the urgency hanging between them. He wanted to dive in headfirst, to confront the raw truths that had surfaced. "Yeah, I think we should," Jake replied, meeting his father's eyes with a level of seriousness that made Robert's heart pound. They found a small terrace, dimly lit beneath the soft glow of string lights that hung overhead. The fragrant scent of blooming flowers wafted in the air, imparting a bittersweet comfort. They settled onto a wrought iron bench, the cool metal contrasting with the heated discussions that loomed ahead. Robert took a breath, feeling the heaviness return. So where do we begin? You mentioned understanding us. What does that mean for you? Jake shifted slightly, his eyes narrowing in thought. It means peeling back the layers, Dad. I've spent so much of my life feeling like your job defined you, and in turn, defined me. I want more than just to be proud of who my parents were, I want to know who we are together now. The admission pierced through Robert's defenses, rendering him vulnerable and exposed. I realized that I neglected the relationship we had, thinking that providing would be enough. It wasn't. The weight of his confession hung in the air, a tangible acknowledgement of the chasm that had grown between them. What were you afraid of? Jake asked, tilting his head, the challenge evident in his voice. Was it fear of failure, or was it fear of not being able to connect? Because when you were busy earning, it always felt like you were doing it for us, but did you forget how to be there for us? With each word spoken, Robert felt layers of guilt unravel, guilt he had long buried beneath the facade of the diligent provider. I guess I became so engrossed in work, I convinced myself that was love. I thought giving you the best meant sacrificing presence. And now I see how wrong that was. Jake's expression softened slightly. It's hard for me to reconcile that, especially today. I want to celebrate not just Mom's memory, but your sacrifices too. But can you really understand what you missed? Robert stared into Jake's eyes, the raw emotion reflected back at him. This was his opportunity, an opening to bridge the gap. I want to. I'm here now. I want to understand everything, your experiences, your struggles. I'm ready to listen and to learn. Some flicker of relief crossed Jake's face. It seemed as if he was finally being seen, heard, rather than overshadowed by expectations. Then let us do it. Let us break down these walls together, starting with the moments that defined us. The determination radiating between them pulsed with a potential so profound that it almost felt transcendent, a testament to the bond yearning to rebloom. However, the underlying fear stirred within Robert. What truths would they unearth, and would those revelations solidify their connection or shatter it indefinitely? In that moment, a rush of emotions threatened to engulf him, the weight of grief and hope intertwining. He was aware, keenly aware, that this conversation would reshape their future, carving out new definitions of fatherhood and sonship. Jake hesitated, as if he felt the gravity of what was coming next. But do you think we're truly ready for this? It might bring up things neither of us want to face. A profound stillness enveloped them, leaving Robert to contemplate the uncertainty. He realized it all hinged on this moment. Could they navigate the intricacies of their shared past without losing each other entirely? The future hung before them like a loaded weapon, and just as he summoned his courage to answer, the air shifted, and a sudden doubt crept into his mind. What if this was the moment that tipped the balance? As Jake's eyes remained fixed on him, Robert felt the fragile thread of their bond quivering beneath the intensity of the conversation yet to unfold. Would they emerge stronger through the shared struggle, or would this revelation only deepen the chasms of discomfort? Time seemed to still as he prepared to confront the complexities of their intertwined histories. What was about to surface could illuminate the dark corners of Robert's past, yet it also held the power to fracture the moment he had fought so hard to reclaim. Would truth offer liberation, or would it chain them to an unchangeable past? Each heartbeat echoed, anxious for the resolution just out of reach. The flickering lights overhead seemed to echo Robert's uncertain pulse as he turned the weighty question in his mind. This moment was not just about words, it was about the unsaid, the history that had built walls around their intimacy. Jake shifted on the bench, a gentle wind rustling the leaves around them, and Robert could feel it beckoning them towards an understanding. Where do we really begin? Robert's voice was a whisper, the urgency in it palpable. He felt the curtain of pretense draw back slightly, exposing both father and son to the raw elements of their reality. This was no longer simply a conversation, it was a reckoning. Jake leaned in, pressing forward, his brow furrowed in genuine concern. What if the past isn't something we can fix overnight? What if it needs more than just a moment to show you the truth? The hesitant sincerity in his son's words knocked the breath from Robert's lungs. He had always thought of himself as a facilitator of Jake's happiness, the father who provided and ensured a comfortable life. Yet, it struck him that in his pursuit of being a good parent through accomplishments, he had avoided the very vulnerability this moment demanded. "I think I've spent so much time running from vulnerability," Robert admitted, his voice trembling slightly. "I thought if I kept the presents coming, if I made sure you wanted for nothing, that it meant I was doing my job as a father. But I can see that's not enough. I didn't realize I built a life around transactions and forgot to invest in our relationship." Jake's expression shifted, a mix of recognition and hesitation coloring his features. "Do you want to try seeing me as more than a shadow of your success, Dad? I want you to see me, truly see me. More than your son, more than an extension of your hopes." Robert felt a tightening in his chest. It was a challenge he had yearned to hear, the kind of directness that had eluded their relationship. "You're right. I kept putting my interpretations of love onto you. I suffocated you with expectations rather than allowing you to just be who you are." The air between them started to shift, each admission like an ember igniting the dry kindling of their past. Eager to continue, Jake responded, "Perhaps we can explore the parts of our lives where we felt misunderstood. I know it won't be easy, but every moment we've avoided it just cluttered everything up." A wave of uncertainty washed over Robert again. He could feel the inflammation of buried memories pressing on him, threatening to bubble over. He knew he had a choice, either continue the conversation or retreat back to the safety of silence. Yet there was a lingering courage present, one that whispered change was possible if only they between them could just be honest. "It's like we've danced around everything for so long," Robert said, the realization dawning with piercing clarity. "What am I truly afraid of? That you'll see my flaws? That I'll have to confront the parts of myself I'm ashamed of? Dad, I can only grow if we dig deeper. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that the flaws don't define you, they're just part of the journey." The statement hung in the air, challenging years of avoidance. Robert felt the urge to sit back, to shield himself, yet something more powerful dragged him forward. This was the crux of their relationship, a moment poised to redefine who they were to each other. He inhaled deeply, searching for resolve. "Then let us not just pick at the surface. I'm ready to hear what you need to say, no matter how painful." Jake nodded slowly, a glint of respect sparkling within his otherwise intense gaze. "Okay, let us start by unpacking that day, the one that changed everything for me and for us." Robert's heart raced, the sheer weight of what Jake was about to reveal felt daunting. Would the secrets unveiled usher in healing, or would they deepen the rift he feared was already too deep to reconcile? Confidence battled doubt within him, but the desire to understand their shared anguish pressed him on. As the night deepened and shadows danced under the terrace lights, the moment hung before them like a precipice. Could he muster the fortitude to uncover the truths lurking in their pasts? The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but Robert chose to embrace it. Whatever revelations lay ahead, he would meet them head-on, ready to confront not just Jake's story, but the untold chapters of his own life. The tension settled between them like a thick fog, wrapping both Robert and Jake in a palpable silence. It was as if time itself paused, allowing them to contemplate the magnitude of what lay ahead. Robert could feel the delicate nature of the moment, his palms damp as he swiped them nervously against his jeans, his thoughts racing. Jake let out a quiet sigh, breaking the stillness that had enveloped them. "I guess it all started that day when you walked away," he began cautiously, eyes shifting away to trace the outline of a nearby tree. "I was so angry at you, and yet, part of me was just so scared." Robert's heart sank as he recalled the harsh words exchanged in a storm of emotions. The accusations, the blame, it played back in vivid color, painting over the less favorable moments of his parenting. "I didn't realize how much that impacted you," he admitted, voice thick with regret. "You didn't just walk away, Dad," Jake replied, his tone changing from one of fear to something more confrontational. "You left me standing there, feeling like I wasn't worth sticking around for. It made me think that if I didn't meet your expectations, I might lose you for good." In that instant, Robert felt the sting of his son's words pierce through the layers of complacency he had built. A lifetime of choices that had been obscured by a shield of obligations was suddenly laid bare, and he felt exposed. "I thought," he started, the weight of his past choices hanging heavy on his tongue. "I thought I was preparing you for the world. I thought failure wasn't an option. But in doing that, you made me feel like a failure." A tremor of emotion quaked in Jake's voice, but he pressed forward, unyielding. "You rarely saw me as I am, just your version of who I should be." Anger and shame unfolded within Robert as he struggled to breathe under the intensity of his son's confession. A realization hit him with the force of a tidal wave. He had prioritized expectations over acceptance. The very love he thought he was giving had actually been a demand cloaked in affection. In pursuit of excellence for Jake, he had forgotten the importance of simply valuing him for who he was. "What do I do now?" he stammered, as if seeking redemption in the air of the night. His voice held a vulnerable quaver that revealed his willingness to be led out of the shadows. "You learn to listen," Jake replied, steadiness now anchoring his expression. "You have to let me share my fears without worrying about how you'll react. Can you promise to hear me?" "I promise." The word felt like an offering, yet Robert knew it came with a hefty price of accountability. Jake uncrossed his arms, his demeanor softening into something more open and warm. "Okay, then let us dig into how we got here. Believe me, it's not easy for me either. I carried the weight of our misunderstandings for years. Let us unearth it together," Robert suggested, his voice steadier now with resolve. The gravity of this dialogue propelled him forward, a drive to redefine not just their relationship, but perhaps even himself. As Jake began to narrate that day, the events that led to Robert's departure from the pivotal graduation party, memories clashed in Robert's mind. Anxiety ebbed and flowed like the tide, with waves of self-doubt crashing against the shoreline of his newly emerging courage. Each word from his son dripped with emotion, revealing layers of hurt long concealed. Robert felt himself shifting, his identity as a father unraveling into something raw and genuine. But buried beneath truth-telling was fear, gnawing at the edges of this newfound connection. What if unveiling the past only unearthed more pain? Would honesty ultimately fray the bond they were trying so desperately to mend? With each revelation, a fragment of Robert's identity crumbled away, and he was left feeling unexpectedly lighter yet more exposed. What treasures lay ahead if they continued to excavate together? "Jake," he said cautiously, "do you think it's possible to understand each other after all this time?" His question hung in the air, a fragile thread, connecting their hopes for healing. The answer lingered just out of reach, shrouded in uncertainty. They stood on the brink of reconciling a past that had tried to suffocate them, and Robert braced himself. The promise of understanding lay tantalizingly ahead, but so did the fear that it might pull him deeper into the abyss of his own past failures. With each passing second, it was becoming clear, the path to redemption would be paved with honesty, vulnerability, and perhaps, the hardest thing of all, acceptance. In the silence that followed, a single question loomed large: could they survive the truths they were about to unearth? The air still vibrated with the unspoken weight of their exchange, and Robert felt a shift within himself, a gnawing desire to break through the barriers he had unknowingly constructed. The darkness of their past loomed like a specter, yet oddly, the flicker of hope warmed the edges of his consciousness. It was an unfamiliar feeling, yet undeniably crucial. "Let us start with that party," Jake said, drawing Robert back into the murky waters of memory. "I kept looking for you, waiting for you to join in the celebration. But you didn't show." The accusation burned, but it was tinged with a sadness that underlined the depth of his son's yearning. Robert nodded slowly, the humiliation of that day washing over him. He had rationalized his absence with a litany of excuses: work pressure, unforeseen circumstances, the mere chaos of life. But hearing Jake's perspective reshaped those narratives into daggers, wound tightly around his heart. "I thought I was doing what I needed to do to provide for us. But was it worth it?" Jake's voice cut through him, making the question resonate like a bell tolling in the silence. Robert swallowed hard, grappling with something that felt akin to betrayal, not of his son, but of himself. "I don't know. I thought I was being a good father. What did you think my graduation meant to me?" Jake's expression was a mix of anger and disappointment. To finally see you smiling in the audience, cheering me on." His voice trailed off, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that clawed at Robert's composure. The rawness of Jake's experience shattered the facade Robert had built around his own emotional neglect. It clawed at the corners of his mind, forcing him to confront the fears he'd buried, the fear of failure, of being unworthy. I wanted to support you, to give you a better life," he faltered, realizing the stark difference between intention and impact. Jake leaned closer, his voice barely more than a whisper. "But you never thought I wanted you to be there, not just as a provider, but as my dad." It was a challenge, one that echoed against Robert's concept of fatherhood, demanding a more profound understanding. "I didn't." Robert began, his thoughts tripping over one another. "I didn't understand." The vulnerability of admitting ignorance hung uncomfortably between them. It felt terrifying yet liberating, the first step toward rebuilding. I think you need to find how to be there now, not just financially or with advice," Jake pressed. "It's about being part of my life in every sense." A tidal wave of realization crashed over Robert. This was the moment he had always avoided. The moment where his role was not defined by his achievements or failures but by the simple act of being present. How had he managed to overlook this fundamental truth? "I want to be better," he confessed, each word heavier than the last. "I need to learn how, but I want to try." Jake's expression softened, revealing a glimmer of hope. "That's all I ask. Just be willing to hear me out. No more walking away." It was a plea drenched in sincerity, a bridge they could traverse together if only Robert took the leap. As the hours pressed on, they peeled back layers of unspoken grievances, each revelation a shared burden lifted. Robert felt more than the weight of his past, he felt the spark of possibility igniting within him. But with every benevolent intention came trepidation. Was he truly prepared for the hard truths that still lurked in the shadows? What if the exploration only deepened their wounds? The night unfolded, and as they waded through the truths of their past, a new question emerged, a murmur of uncertainty tugging at Robert's consciousness. What secrets had they hidden from each other for the sake of maintaining a fragile semblance of peace? Feeling the walls shift, Robert took a deep breath, steeling himself. Their journey was just beginning, and he could not shake the lingering doubt that haunted him. Would their newfound commitment lead to healing, or would it unearth truths too agonizing to bear? As they delved deeper into their past, the moment of reckoning was approaching. What unanticipated revelations lay ahead? Each discovery could either draw them closer or shatter the fragile connection they had just begun to mend. The following day, Robert found himself sitting at the edge of his bed, staring into the familiarity of his dimly lit room. The haunting echoes of last night's revelations kept looping in his mind like a relentless cycle, nudging him to confront the uncomfortable emotions within. The weight of his neglect felt heavier than it ever had, pressing against his chest, each acknowledgement fueling a mix of resolve and dread. "Be present," Jake had implored, but what did that truly mean? The simplicity of the request contrasted sharply with the complexity Robert felt in his heart. He didn't just want to be a face in the crowd, he wanted to be an integral part of Jake's life, a partner in conversation, a source of support. Today, he vowed, would be the first step toward that transformation. After finishing a hurried breakfast, he opened his laptop, the glow emanating like a beacon of potential. He had always relied on data and analytics in his professional life, approaching problems with a logical mindset. Perhaps, he could apply the same strategies to personal growth, laying out the successes he desired against the backdrop of what he'd previously failed to achieve. It felt like an apprenticeship in emotional intelligence. Robert created a document titled Steps to Being a Better Father. The first entry read, "Listen." With each word, he began to craft a plan that felt surreal yet invigorating. He wanted to know more about Jake. Not just what he had left unsaid during their last conversation, but also the thoughts and passions that colored his son's existence. What music did he like? What dreams did he chase? As he continued typing, an idea sparked. Make time for shared experiences. This could be the foundation he needed to rebuild their connection. They had once shared a passion for hiking before life had driven a wedge between them. Could they revive that bond? The question simmered in his mind, bouncing between hope and hesitation. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a text from Jake. "You want to do something later?" The unexpected invitation sent a rush of anxiety through Robert. What if he failed? What if he couldn't live up to the promise he made last night? The fear of inadequacy lingered, but it quickly transformed into excitement. "I'd love to. How about a hike?" he replied, hardly believing that he had offered up something so simple yet profound. The response felt monumental, a combined attempt to rediscover not just the activities they once enjoyed but also the emotions and connections they had long neglected. They met at the trailhead, the sun dipping low in the afternoon sky, casting the world in a soft orange glow. With each step they took, the air became charged with the potential for a heartfelt conversation. Robert sensed Jake's hesitation, and that made his nerves flare. It was a blend of searching for the right words and confronting his own fears. "Good to see you," Jake said, a touch restrained, as he adjusted the straps of his backpack. "Been a while since we did this." "Yeah, too long," Robert admitted, grateful that Jake had agreed to join him. Ominous clouds of uncertainty hung just above, but he pushed them aside, focusing on the bumpy trail ahead. "I want to hear more about what you're up to." Jake glanced sideways, eyebrows raised with cautious optimism. "You mean like what I'm into?" "Everything. Music, school, life." Robert's voice trailed off momentarily, a wave of urgency crashing over him. "I want to know you, Jake." The sincerity in his voice seemed to resonate, making Jake noticeably relax. "Okay. But you might be surprised." The playful challenge hung in the air between them, a flicker of excitement beginning to dissolve the tension. As they reached a clearing, the view unfurled before them in breathtaking splendor, trees dancing in harmony, hills rolling infinitely like a reassuring promise. Robert inhaled deeply, absorbing the healing power of nature. He felt a shift within himself, an urge to connect again. But as they settled to take a breath, resting against the warm stone wall, Robert fought against the nagging thought, would Jake mirror his desire for a deeper connection? The uncertainty hung, but he was determined not to let it thwart his progress. "Let's talk about the things we never talked about," Robert proposed, his voice firm yet gentle. "I want you to feel like I'm here for you, not just in words but in action." In that moment, the tension coiled tighter, as Jake's silence morphed into contemplation. What could he possibly reveal? Robert waited, the air thick with anticipation. What truths waited to be unveiled in this delicate balance between past misunderstandings and hopeful futures? And as Jake finally opened up, Robert felt the ground shift. This was merely the beginning of a much deeper exploration into fatherhood and connection. Would the revelations be a balm for their wounds, or would they expose deeper fissures that required more than just simple words? The silence stretched, holding a tension that felt almost palpable. Robert's heart raced as he watched Jake, the sunlight painting golden hues across his son's face. His son's hesitation hung in the air, heavy but ripe with potential. What could he possibly say? Robert mentally braced himself, ready to catch whatever words might drop into the space between them. I don't know where to start," Jake finally muttered, his voice tentative. "There's so much. Really, really personal stuff." There it was, the crux of the moment. Robert leaned in, encouraging his son with a subtle nod. "Just, be honest. Whatever it is, I can take it." Jake took a deep breath, his eyes darting away, searching the vastness of the horizon before settling back on Robert. "You know how I've been struggling with school?" Robert stiffened, a fragment of guilt gnawing at him. The countless times he pushed Jake to excel, the relentless pursuit of success over emotional connection, had it all pushed him away? "I do. And I want you to know," his voice faltered. "I want to support you in whatever way you need." Jake's expression flickered, a mixture of surprise and latent anger boiling beneath the surface. "Support? You mean like when you told me I had to focus on grades? That I had to get into a good college?" The bitterness in his tone cut deeper than Robert anticipated. His defensive instincts flared, but he swallowed hard, reminding himself of the promise he made. "I thought I was doing what was best for you. But what if I don't want that?" Jake's voice rose, raw and unfiltered. What if I want to be a musician? What if I want to follow the music? To live for something I love? I felt like I couldn't even talk to you about it without worrying you'd shut me down. Each word hit like a drumbeat in Robert's mind, resonating with realizations he hadn't fully acknowledged. Perhaps he had been so caught up in projecting a vision of success, he'd overlooked Jake's dreams entirely. His task wasn't just to listen, it was to understand. What do you want to do? He prompted gently. I want to play music. I want to write songs that matter. The fierce passion lit a flame in Jake's eyes. But I thought you would hate that. I thought you would see it as a failure. Robert's heart sank. His own ambitions had long overshadowed the simple acts of patience and encouragement. No, I'd never hate what makes you happy. I was wrong to assume what was best for you. Taking a moment, Robert decided to reveal a part of himself he had kept hidden. I'd been chasing a version of success I thought I needed to provide a good life for us. I'm realizing now that it was flawed because it didn't take into account what you wanted. Jake's demeanor softened slightly, the hardness giving way to vulnerability. This isn't about you and me competing, Dad. I just want to be seen, like I matter for who I am, not just what I can achieve. As Robert processed these words, a revelation dawned. He had spent years guiding, controlling, and advising, but the real task had been to instill confidence and faith in Jake's own choices. Let us build this together, then, he said, a new resolve bubbling within him. I want to help you with your music. I want to learn about what inspires you. For the first time, Robert felt a glimmer of what true presence meant, genuinely engaging with his son's passions rather than imposing expectations. Jake's expression shifted again, a tentative glimmer of hope. You really mean that? I do, Robert replied, and the promise felt like a tether tying them together, a renewed commitment to understanding one another. But as they continued their conversation, a nagging thought lingered in Robert's mind. Did this surge of vulnerability mean they were ready to confront everything, or had they merely scratched the surface of deeper issues yet to be resolved? Was there more to uncover, and would the discoveries they made together reshape not just their relationship, but Robert's own understanding of fatherhood entirely? That question loomed heavy in the air as the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows on the ground. Each statement resonated, offering up new avenues of growth. If they could face this, what other truths awaited them on this rocky path of renewal? The conversation hung in the air, charged with newfound understanding yet still fragile. Robert found himself reconsidering everything he had taken for granted: his role as a father, his ambitions, and the unspoken expectations hovering between him and Jake. Was this the turning point they had long needed, or just the beginning of a deeper struggle? Jake's eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and apprehension, transforming the quiet moment into a shared journey of discovery. What if we start writing together? He proposed suddenly, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. The suggestion jolted Robert. Could he truly immerse himself in Jake's world, in a realm as foreign to him as it was honest? You want me to help you create music? What if I don't even understand it? Jake rolled his eyes, a smile escaping the tension. It's not about understanding every note. It's about being there while I do it. You're my dad, that's enough. In that moment, a quiet determination began to awaken within Robert. This could be more than just an opportunity for connection, it was a chance for growth, for both of them. He resolved to learn how to foster Jake's artistry, but the question loomed large: would he have the patience and humility to truly support him? Yes, let us do that, Robert said, surprising himself. He felt a rush of ambition, but this time it wasn't about his accolades or success. It was about the connection he yearned to build. As they leaned against the porch railing together, Robert's mind raced with logistical plans. How did one even begin to write a song? He envisioned late nights, jingled tunes, missed deadlines, all while encouraging Jake to express and explore freely. But with every thought came a nagging self-doubt: could he bring as much to the table as Jake expected? With the sun dipping below the horizon, casting a warm glow on their renewed connection, Jake added, it helps that I'm not afraid to fail anymore. You'll see, we'll get through the bad songs together. The honesty in Jake's words struck Robert deeply. Failure had always felt like a bitter pill he had been unwilling to swallow, especially in the confines of academia where excellence was rewarded. How could he reconcile his past fear of imperfection with the supportive father he aspired to be? Maybe I need to fail too, he mused, not entirely aware he had spoken aloud. Yeah, it's okay, Jake replied, his sincerity wrapping around Robert's hesitations. You're allowed to be imperfect. All great artists are. The hurt from their earlier conversation lingered on the surface, but it was accompanied now by a flicker of mutual understanding. Robert realized he had been so engrossed in his vision of success that he had blinded himself to the very joys of creating a lesson Jake was unwittingly teaching him. As their conversation unfolded, Robert felt an urge to confront his own limitations. If he truly wanted to be there for Jake, it meant facing the specter of his expectations. And that was no small task. What if I look like a fool? Robert ventured. Then we'll both look foolish, Jake replied with a grin. I want to make memories. Who cares if we mess up? The laughter that followed felt liberating, and Robert seized the moment. Okay, let us make some terrible music together. With each word exchanged, a bond deepened between them, shifting from strained understandings to genuine excitement. But behind this newfound motivation loomed a question that wouldn't fade. Could Robert truly navigate the unpredictability of art and emotion? As they shared ideas about themes and melodies, Robert felt both exhilaration and trepidation. He was stepping into unknown territory, and while he was eager to support Jake, the reality of his own insecurities loomed ominously ahead. Could he dismantle his mental barriers in the name of fatherhood and creativity? As the dusk deepened and shadows crept back to embrace the world, Robert knew that transformations within themselves were just beginning. Whatever awaited them, it was clear they had opened a door to a creative path fraught with challenges, some of which would test the very essence of who they were. What bold truths would emerge when they stepped fully into the light of their music and each other? The weeks that followed the hike became a remarkable transformation period for both Robert and Jake, as they dove into the world of music together. Each session was filled with laughter and discovery, but as they began to write songs, the deeper layers of their relationship started surfacing. Robert emerged from the shadows of his insecurities, embracing the messy, imperfect process of creation. The notion of failure began to lose its rigidity. Each stray note, each poorly articulated lyric became opportunities for connection rather than sources of embarrassment. Just let it flow, Jake often reminded him, and with each passing day, Robert truly began to understand. Addressing the complexities of their past became an intertwined aspect of their creative journey. On Friday evenings, while jotting down lyrics, the sacred space transformed into a platform of openness where memories unraveled and conversations flowed naturally. One evening, as notes strummed lightly in the air, Robert finally voiced what had gnawed him. You know, it struck me that I was always so concerned about your future that I forgot to value your present, he confessed, the weight of admission dawning heavy yet liberating. Jake nodded, a deeper understanding gleaming in his eyes. It's like we both miscalculated. We were chasing shadows, missing the real moments. They had begun to compose songs that encapsulated their stories, remnants of grief, joy and creative expression, and the ongoing journey towards understanding each other. Each lyric became a catharsis, pouring out pain transformed into artistry. There was a song, lost in melody, reflecting the chaos and confusion of their initial estrangement, yet ultimately a celebration of rediscovery. Crafting these pieces strengthened the invisible bonds that had once felt brittle. As Robert's confidence flourished, so did his desire to share their progress. Jake was hesitant initially but eventually agreed. They performed in small local cafes, inviting friends and family to listen. The applause transformed anxiety into recognition, boosting Robert's belief in himself, both as a parent and as a performer. That night, seated in a crowded cafe after an exhilarating rendition of Lost in Melody, Robert felt a deep sense of fulfillment he hadn't known in years. Jake was beaming, and the sense of pride enveloped him like a warm blanket. He shared a smile with his son, a silent acknowledgement of how far they had come. The external recognition that followed was almost surreal. Not only did their local community appreciate their songs, but a music showcase invited them to perform, an opportunity to reach even wider audiences. Robert's days shifted from uncertainty to direction as he began to redefine his identity through music mothered by vulnerability and openness. Yet, even amidst success, Robert remained grounded. He privately reflected, acknowledging how profoundly being present transformed his perception of fatherhood. His new narrative, a blend of art, struggle, and joy, extended way beyond mere accomplishments. He was evolving into a man who embraced kinship and creativity as part of his life's worth. But the most pivotal moment arrived when Jake suggested, "Why don't we share this with more families? Help them connect through music too. It helps." And without thinking, Robert agreed, recognizing that they had a gift that could foster shared experiences and repair bonds for others navigating similar estrangement. As they brainstormed ways to bridge creative expression with community healing, Robert felt a surge of pride both for himself and for the relationship he had nurtured with his son. It was not just his triumph but theirs. The whisperings of doubt that had accompanied him for so long transformed into a solid confidence grounded in meaningful action. Each experience became an affirmation of his growth. He had accomplished more than he imagined by allowing himself to be vulnerable, recognizing the importance of presence over perfection, and ultimately fostering a thriving trajectory. In the climactic moment of their first community outreach performance, Robert found himself in a sea of familiar faces, friends, family, and new supporters all gathered, ready to witness the culmination of their journey. He stood beside Jake, the energy palpable, ready to share their story of vulnerability through music. As they struck the first chord, Robert glanced at Jake, and the surge of hope flooded his senses. This was not only a performance, it was an expression of their triumphant transformation. Together, they had forged a path not only toward mutual understanding but had crafted an enduring legacy of love and connection. Ultimately, Robert realized he had conquered his demons, and in doing so, he had assumed the solid position of both father and creative collaborator. They were not just making music but crafting a life full of meaning and growth, a truth he swore to uphold. This was his moment of triumph, a testament to resilience, proving that the journey toward understanding carries as much value as the destination itself. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for those who strive for personal transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help these emotional stories reach others. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this powerful journey.